So, you've just played The Quarry. Or maybe you've already been a fan of the Dark Pictures anthology so far, or maybe you're a purist and you only liked Until Dawn. Either way, there's a reason to be excited about the next game from Supermassive Games called The Devil in Me, and of course that's part of the Dark Pictures anthology, and it is the finale to Season 1, seemingly indicating that there will be some kind of break to the semi-yearly cadence of these games at a smaller AA budget, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But regardless, a lot of new information just dropped about the game, and I'd like to go over everything there is to know in this video, and when you'll be seeing more of the game, because they seemingly gave that away just in a tweet just the other day. So with that being said, let's hop right in. First off, as I said, The Devil in Me comes from Supermassive Games, and it is being published by Bandai Namco Entertainment, and that will be coming to all the major platforms. You've got PC with Steam, as well as Xbox Series X and S, as well as One, and then PS4 and PS5. We don't have an exact date as of right now. All we have right now is the 2 tags given out, which have been both autumn of this year, as well as fall 2022. So you can kind of narrow it down from there to what kind of months you're getting into. Though I will say that if the series has any track record whatsoever, it's that Man of Medan, the first game in the franchise, released August 30th of 2019. However, the next 2 games, Little Hope and House of Ashes, both released in October of their respective years of 2020 and 2021. Now I'll get into some of the collector's edition items just a little bit later, but for right now it's important to note that the game will be launching for $40 and the collector's edition will be $80. And bouncing right off of that, let's go ahead and get into what the game actually is. At this point, you should be pretty familiar with the formula for the Dark Pictures games, as well as other Supermassive games. It's a third-person, used to be a fixed camera angle type experience, but seemingly for the rest of the Dark Pictures games, they have started to shift away from that. You have a little more agency as far as control with your camera, and we'll be getting into the new gameplay changes here in just a minute, but for right now, a little bit more about the game. So the setting of the game is actually a recreation of the H.H. Holmes murder castle, which if you're unfamiliar with what that is, H.H. Holmes was one of the, if not actually the first documented serial killer in America, and pretty much it was this big labyrinth of like a hotel and structure that would be designed to kill people. That's all I really looked into it as far as that goes, because I really didn't want to be spoiled as to kind of what happened in a weird kind of way. That sounds absolutely terrible now that I say that out loud, but I figured there would be a lot of inspiration from that as they name drop that directly in the trailers for the game as well as the marketing. So really interesting to see that they're going for a real world inspiration here rather than, myth or even just completely skipping reality with some of the earlier games in the franchise. And while I've had the trailers playing in the background of this video, let's go ahead and hop into exactly what the story premise is. And that's that a group of documentary filmmakers receive a mysterious call inviting them to a modern-day replica of H.H. Holmes' murder hotel. But on arrival, the crew soon discover they're being watched and even manipulated, and suddenly there's much more at stake than just their ratings. And again, I'll go over the cast in just a minute. I hate to be putting off all these details, but I'm going over what I think is the most exciting. And that to me is the setting and the hotel itself. And going right into that, we have a store page detail. Welcome to the Murder Hotel, where nothing is as it seems and the amenities are to die for. Explore every nook of the World's Fair Hotel, and using the all-new season finale features including character inventory, tool-based puzzles, and expanded movement actions such as run, jump, and even climb. And holy shit, this little detail here makes me think that this game's going to be insane compared to the rest of the franchise. We've already seen them kind of dial back the idea that the player can control more of the camera, but the way I see it, if we're going to be able to do all this stuff, I'm really interested to see just how crazy this is going to be, and it's clear that there's going to be a really heavy inspiration and use of things from Saw as well, another kind of gore horror franchise, and I'm really curious just to see how far they go with it. But when I see tool-based puzzles, I think of Resident Evil. I think of making sure you have the right tool for the right job, putting it in the right place, and just making sure everything works. As well, that feeds right into the character inventory as well. You need to make sure you have the right tools for the right job. Perhaps if you don't explore enough, then you will fail the mission. And it has been confirmed that all, I believe 5, I think there are confirmed playable characters in the game, are going to have the same fate as any other Dark Pictures game, where you can either let them all live, make them all die, or some combination of which in between. But then I also see things like the expanded character movements such as run, jump, and climb. And the first thing I think of with this is a traversal puzzle, and maybe something is chasing us, which honestly, this to me, that's the real fear in horror games, being chased. or being on a mission that's really tense where perhaps you have to run to save someone, or any combination of things that put you on a timer. I love that. I love the tension that causes, and this game seems to be doing everything right. Now maybe I'm shooting too high for this. Maybe the running will be clunky or some way in between, but honestly the fact that they have a jump button really just it gets me excited. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with this. I can't imagine it. But continuing on, another thing from their website is that your death is his design. His being whoever has created, of course, the Murder Hotel. And this is a recreation, so of course the actual villain is not H.H. Holmes, that should be stated. And you'll need to escape the torturous creations of an evil monster who has been hell-bent on becoming America's deadliest serial killer. So we've got a copycat here. You'll need to survive elaborate killing rooms where your own death is by the killer's design. But of course, another staple of the Dark Pictures games is that you don't have to play alone. You can endure terrifying tests of loyalty. Will you risk your own life for someone else you care about? And with that question in mind, the 2 critically acclaimed multiplayer game modes are back. Share your story online with a friend in online co-op, which is how I played Man of Medan, and that made that experience way more enjoyable. Or you can do the 5-player pass the pad co-op mode, which this is where I got the idea that there are going to be 5 playable characters. And again, before I visit the cast, there's one final thing that I actually did want to bring up, and that's actually a video from Twitter itself. And this comes from the game's director, Tom Heaton. And he says that the game actually features quite a bit of changes compared to previous games, putting it more in line with their other games like The Quarry and Until Dawn, that the game will actually have an increased play length. So that's very exciting, seeing as how I believe Man of Medan ran somewhere between 3 and 4 hours depending on how well you played. And there will also be expanded exploration, and that's something that I wanted to point out here, that in the Collector's Edition, you actually do get a map of the castle or hotel type thing. And with that in mind, I think the idea that you, as the player, can go wherever you choose, I'm not saying it's open world, but potentially, if you know you need to get to this part of the hotel to escape or do something like that, and you need to keep the map in mind, this is something that with the new gameplay mechanics, maybe I'm getting way ahead of myself here, and if I am, I apologize, so check yourself with your hype levels, if maybe I'm getting a little too crazy, but I always want the best for this team, seeing as how I believe that Until Dawn is one of the best games of all time. I'm just really hoping that with The Quarry that I'll actually be starting to play soon, as well as my replay of the other Dark Pictures game in anticipation for this one, I just really hope that their quality is on an ever-growing climate ever since that high pop at the beginning. But regardless, that's my speculation that maybe you will have some agency of which direction you get to go. I mean, after all, this is a choices matter game, so you'll be choosing things like who to put in danger, who to save in certain scenarios, and even simple stuff like where to go, what to pick up as a weapon, and different things like that. The minute details are what I love about these games. And really, that's all we get from that video. I mean, increased length of the game for a Dark Pictures game is great. Expanded exploration is great. Player agency as far as running, jumping, and climbing, that's great. There's a lot of changes in this, and even from earlier games with the fixed camera angles, that's something that we should expect too. But regardless, I'm super excited for this game, and we don't have to wait too long to hear more. Supposedly, we'll hear about the game next at Gamescom. And if you're unfamiliar with what Gamescom is, you may know that Gamescom Opening Night Live is usually hosted by Jeff Keighley. It was last year, and a lot of cool games were shown off, including, I even believe, the Outlast Trials. I'm curious if we'll see more of that game here as well, but for right now, let's consider the fact that Gamescom this year runs from August 24th to August 28th, and if we're not hearing about the game until then, or major gameplay news at Gamescom, then, well, it looks like we're definitely going to get that October release date. That's about as far as you can get into the fall release or autumn as possible. After that, it's basically winter. So, yes, expect the game, more than likely, October of 2022, which would fall in line with the last 2 releases in this franchise. The only exception, of course, being the first game, but hey, things change when you first start something. And one final thing, as promised, I said I would go over what is in the Collector's Edition of the game, and this is called the Animatronic Collector's Edition. So of course you get the full game, you get the collector's box that it does come in, as well as an animatronic bust, which with the automated nature of the game itself and the building that we're going to be stuck in as the players, very interesting to see just how gory it looks like it could get. We get a few other exclusive collector's things like the postcard and envelope, which shows the World's Fair Hotel, which of course the World's Fair Hotel is the real life place that it is based off of. And then we've got the Lana Entertainment card, which Lana Entertainment is the film company that we're working for, and then the hotel map that I mentioned earlier, which it's kind of covered up here, but I don't know if it's going to look exactly like that. Doesn't look like it would. That doesn't make sense. But either way, I'm pretty excited to see what that looks like. But the thing that's really interesting to me, and this is something they've done for each of the Dark Pictures games so far, to my knowledge, or at least that I've been paying attention for, is for the pre-order bonus they have the Curator's Cut, or rather the early access to it, which allows new scenes with different playable characters than perhaps you would have came across before, or new scenes altogether, as well as new choices and different outcomes based off of presumably those new scenes. I'm not super big on pre-ordering games all the time. I usually only do it if I know for sure I'm getting the game no matter what the hype or what the reviews are like. So that's up to you if you really want to do that, but it's important to note that this does eventually come to all players in a free update. So really only if you want to play that first time playthrough with all that extra stuff, then hey, that's on you. So yeah, that's everything you really need to know about the Dark Pictures The Devil in Me. However, there's a little bit more information that we have, and that's who's working on the game. I've already talked about the game's director, and the producers that are listed on the game are pretty much the same for every supermassive game, so nothing's changed there as far as writing and quality goes. So you pretty much know what you're getting into, but the only character from the cast listed on IMDb with an actual creator is Jessie Buckley, and she's going to be voicing Kate Wilder, one of the playable characters. And while we do have some images of her in the game, and of course she's in the trailer, we don't know really too much about who that is. Jessie Buckley, I don't really know her too well either, but she was in Chernobyl, the limited HBO run show, something I would like to watch, so perhaps after I play this and then I see her, I can say, hey, that's the Devil in Me girl. Regardless though, that's really all we know about the game. Go ahead and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I haven't actually went through and played the other games for review yet. I was waiting for Season 1 to finish. So if you're looking for an overall thoughts on Season 1 video, go ahead and stick around. Maybe it'll be more of a retrospective type thing, comparing each game to the previous and how it improved the franchise. And if that's not really your thing, you've already played the games, you don't care what anybody else has to say, go ahead and look forward to my actual full-on retrospective of Until Dawn. And that's a video that I'm super excited to make, as Until Dawn is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm going to be going pretty in-depth with everything that happens in the game, both decisions-based, as well as overall plot narratives, and even some behind-the-scenes stuff if I can fit any of that in. Regardless, it should be a fun video, even if it is a little ways away. But, like I said, subscribe. Maybe you'll see more information news videos like this that you like. But, yeah, bye. Thanks.